Have you ever found yourself explaining the same thing over and over again to the same person? Not because they didn't hear you the first time, but because no matter how clearly you said it, no matter how honestly you laid everything out, it never seemed to land the way you meant it. So you tried again. You rephrased it. You added more context. You went deeper into your own feelings, your own intentions, your own reasons, hoping that this time, finally, they would understand. But they didn't, and deep down, somewhere beneath all that effort, a part of you already knew why, because they had already decided who you were, and your explanation was never going to change that. This is one of the most quietly exhausting things a person can experience. Not a loud fight, not an obvious betrayal, but this slow, draining cycle of trying to prove yourself to someone who was never truly open to seeing you differently. You keep finding new ways to say the same truth, and they keep finding new ways to dismiss it. And somewhere in that cycle, without even realizing it, you start to lose something. You start to lose trust in your own version of yourself. Because when someone repeatedly refuses to see you clearly, and you keep trying to make them, eventually the self-doubt creeps in. Maybe I am explaining it wrong. Maybe there is something about me that really is the problem. Maybe if I just find the right words, the right tone, the right moment, they will finally get it. And so you keep going, keep trying. Keep handing pieces of yourself over to someone who was never going to hold them carefully. And that is where the real damage happens. Not in the argument, not in the misunderstanding, but in the slow erosion of your own confidence that comes from chasing validation from someone who decided your worth before you even opened your mouth. So let's talk about why we do this. Because it is not weakness. It is actually something comes from a very human place. Most people who over-explain themselves are people who value honesty deeply. People who believe that if the truth is clear enough, it will always be recognized. People who grew up learning that misunderstandings could be resolved with the right conversation, that people were fundamentally reasonable, that fairness was something you could reach if you just communicated well enough. And in healthy relationships, that is true. In connections built on mutual respect and genuine care, explaining yourself works. It brings people closer. It resolves tension. It deepens understanding. But not every person operates from that place. And not every relationship is built on the kind of foundation where your honesty will be received as honesty. Some people have already written the story of who you are. And in that story, your explanations are not new information. They are just more evidence for the conclusion they already reached. If they decided you are selfish, your explanation sounds like excuses. If they decided you are manipulative, your honesty sounds like performance. If they decided you are the problem, every word you say gets filtered through that lens first. And no amount of truth survives that kind of filter intact. Here is what that pattern is really costing you, and most people never stop long enough to add it up. Every explanation you give to someone who has already decided is energy spent in the wrong direction. It is time you are not giving to people who actually see you. It is emotional bandwidth you are not using to process your own feelings and move forward. It is self-respect you are quietly trading away every time you stand in front of someone's closed judgment and beg for entry. And the cost is not just exhaustion. The cost is that slowly, over time, you start to believe that your truth needs constant defense to be valid, that your character requires someone else's approval to be real, that you are only as trustworthy as the last person who believed you. And that is a painful way to live, because here is what is actually true. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need every person who misreads you to be corrected. You do not need to turn every misunderstanding into a courtroom where you present your case and wait for a verdict. Some people are going to misunderstand you. Some are going to judge you without full information. Some are going to hold on to a version of you that was never accurate because it serves a purpose for them, because it protects a narrative they need, because seeing you clearly would require them to question something about themselves they are not ready to face. And that is their work to do, not yours. Your work is to know yourself so clearly, so honestly, so completely that someone else's misreading of you does not shake the ground you stand on. Your work is to get to a place where you can look at someone's wrong opinion of you and think, that is not who I am, and keep walking, without the lengthy explanation, without the desperate need for them to agree, without handing them the power to define you. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided, something remarkable happens. You reclaim something you didn't realize you had given away, a quiet confidence, a steadiness, a sense of your own truth that does not require anyone else's signature to be valid. You stop shrinking your story to fit someone else's version of it. You stop editing your honesty to make it more palatable for people who were never hungry for it in the first place. You stop performing your own integrity for an audience that had already left the building. And in that stillness, you find something that all that explaining was actually costing you, your own peace. So the next time you feel that familiar pull, that urge to explain one more time, to try one more approach, to finally make someone see what you have been trying to show them for so long, stop for just a moment and ask yourself this: is this person actually open to hearing me, or have they already decided? Because if they have already decided, no explanation will reach them. But your silence, your quiet refusal to keep auditioning for someone's approval, will say something far more powerful than anything you could have put into words. It will say that you finally believe in yourself enough to stop needing them to. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.